Thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to start just by asking of us, why are we all here? And the reason we're here is that while the solar industry has 230,000 Americans doing awesome work today, we need a lot more people. The US generated 3 to 4% of its electricity from solar in 2021 and added over 20 gigawatts, which is an amazing accomplishment. But the DOE and SEIA are talking about doubling or tripling that annual rate to get to 30% of US electricity being generated by solar by 2030, and ideally 40% by 2035. We're seeing this crunch on the workforce at the individual company level too. It's very common for us to talk to firms that can sell all the projects they'll be able to build in a year by Memorial Day. And then they're putting the brakes on new sales, which means less revenue and less new solar because they don't have enough field crews to actually install. So today is to talk about how we respond to this as a country, but also as people building solar companies. Today is also for people who want to rise to the challenge and start their own careers in solar, for you to hear from industry veterans and connect directly with open jobs. Today, we're excited to have a panel with 4 leaders who are actually growing solar teams in the real world. I'm going to ask them questions for 30 or 40 minutes and then open the floor for your questions. Quickly about me, I'm Sam. I'm the CEO of Greenwork. Greenwork is a professional network for you, the clean energy community, and we're grateful to have such an awesome group here today. We wanted now to ask you all to introduce yourselves in the chat. Please put your name and the organization you represent. If you're feeling bold, you can put a little message. If you want people on this Zoom to have your email address, you could share your email address. You'll also be able to connect with people here through Greenwork, both companies and individuals. Today's event is co-hosted by Greenwork and Solar Energy International, SEI. SEI has been offering awesome solar training, both in person in Paonia, Colorado and elsewhere, as well as online since 1991. SEI has the world's largest solar alumni network. They've trained over 85,000 people. So with that, let's get started. Please give a warm, digital welcome to our amazing panelists. Dan Conant, the CEO of Solar Holler, Utopia Hill, the head of EPC at Reactivate, Will White, the head of business development at SEI, and JP Gerken, the CEO of Zenternet. I'm going to start out by just asking each panelist to introduce themselves and the organization they're with. And so Will, could you please start us off by telling us a bit about yourself and about SEI?
Sure, thanks, Sam. So my name is Will White. I'm the Director of Business Development at Solar Energy International. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that provides solar training to people either in or looking to get into the industry. And as Sam said, we have classes online, in person. We do remote training all around the world. I got into the solar industry in 2005 as an installer for an installation company, working on the roof, putting modules up. I was with that company for almost 11 years, worked my way up from an installer through project management into managing crews, and then ended as the director of operations for the East Coast, covering all of our installation teams. I left that organization about 6 years ago to come to SEI, started SEI as a curriculum developer and instructor, and did that for about 5 years, and started as the director of business development in November. So now I'm working with organizations to help get their teams training. So that's a bit about my background.
Thanks, Will. Utopia, I'd love for you to go next.
Thanks so much, Sam, and thanks everyone for joining in and having this chat with us this afternoon. As Sam mentioned, my name is Utopia Hill. I'm currently the head of EPC for Reactivate. Similar to Will, I've been in the industry for about 2 decades now. My background is in engineering. I started off as a project engineer and worked in various roles in engineering, procurement, and construction over those 2 decades. Here recently in January, Invenergy, which is the largest privately held independent power producer, and a company called Lafayette Square, which is a capital investment firm focused on providing capital for low and income communities teamed together, created a joint venture called Reactivate, and I am the head of EPC for that organization.
Awesome. Thanks for being with us today, Utopia. JP, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Really glad to be here. My name is JP Gerken. I'm the CEO and founder of Zenternet. Zenternet is an online brand that helps to make it easier for consumers to purchase solar. Currently operate in 13 states, and we do everything from lead generation to providing a sales platform for our energy consultants to be able to sell remotely, to a centralized operations infrastructure, to boots on the ground with installation partners and with our own installation crews to get up and do the installations. And then, 20, 25 years worth of service post interconnection. So we do basically just about everything in the value chain of solar, and I'm really excited to be a part of this event.
Thanks, JP. And Dan, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Dan Conant. I'm the founder and CEO of Holler. We're the largest solar installation developer and installer in West Virginia and Eastern Kentucky. So we're focused on we're really focused on the Appalachian towns that have powered the rest of the country for the last 150 years, and building up a solar industry from scratch in coal country. So I've been in the industry for 13 years now. This is my third solar startup. Also did a stint at the Sunshot Initiative at the U.S. Department of Energy, and helped start up I was the first employee at the largest solar company in Vermont and upstate New York before I decided to move home to West Virginia and kickstart things down here.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being with us today. Utopia, something I read about Reactivate, which I think is really cool, is that in the community solar projects you're developing and building, you're including a workforce development program to build a local talent pipeline for the projects. Can you share a bit more about that part of your work and what Reactivate's doing?
Sure. So yeah, Reactivate, as a developer, owner, and operator of our assets, a big focus of what we're looking at is how do we add equity into the renewables industry and solar in particular. And we believe a part of that future is bringing a workforce and working with various partners to make sure that we're targeting historically disadvantaged communities, underrepresented communities, and energy transition communities. So folks that normally worked in oil and gas or coal industries, Dan, I'd be happy to talk to you after this call too, and say, how do we bring them into the fold? How do we make sure they have more than just a job, but they have a solar career? So that they can have a well-paying job to care for their families. We feel like a lot of folks have been left behind in this today. So we want to align ourselves with partners, make sure that those partners are providing people who are ready day one to work with our contractors to help us to build out our nationwide portfolio.
Awesome. And Dan, you touched on it, that you're building a solar company in the heart of the conventional electricity industry. How does that affect how you build your team and the labor market and talent that's available in West Virginia?
Yeah. So I started up the company in 2013. In 2020, after several years of doing workforce training in the state, we actually decided to unionize our workforce and joined up with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the more than a century-old electrical trades union. That has been really important for our growth and for, honestly, finding talent that has been out there in the field actually doing good work for, 10, 20 years. So since doing that, we've really partnered tightly with the locals in the union. They've been able to refer over folks. We're also bringing in and recruiting folks into our company and into the industry to then join the union. So it actually goes in both directions, with us sending people to the union sending people to us. For a place that has really West Virginia was the birthplace of the modern labor movement and the union movement. So we have a long cultural history of joining unions. It just really means a lot. it means a lot for us to be doing this as a union shop in the place where we're doing it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how much solar, if someone's coming in who has a lot of electrical experience, hasn't worked in solar, how much solar specific learning and training do you find they have to do when they start?
Usually a couple of months. They'll be beyond the couple of pieces are how do you wire up how do you wire up the inverters, how do you do the interconnections and tie-in strategies, but then there's also the real-time communications piece, and so that's the interesting thing for us, trying to find folks who are both solid electricians but are also comfortable dealing with real-time comms across 30 on a residential scale, 30 or 40 panels, being able to translate those energy and data streams, being able to translate the consumption curves and make sure that everything works. So yeah, you got to find the right people who are comfortable in both worlds.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. JP, Zenternet has grown really fast over the last couple of years, and I both want to ask, how do you do that? How do you build a brand and a consumer experience that attracts a lot of customers and a lot of team members quickly? And what problems do you run into that come with rapid growth?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things that's helped us is really delivering what we say we're going to deliver. When our customers see us online, we want to make sure that the experience that they get is the best experience that they could have, and really making it very easy for them to make a decision to go solar. Really relying on upfront information, whether that be the material that we're using, to really getting detailed into spec sheets, to publishing our price online, right? Which is unique in its own way. That is something that many solar companies don't do, and we feel like we should. We think that we'd like to just show out exactly what it is that you're buying and what that price looks like. And there are a lot of complexities to that as well, right? Because not one solar system fits all, right? Everybody's going to need something unique and different. But we went to market a little bit different, right? We went to market where we didn't do door-to-door sales. We went to market where we had everything online and really went with a virtual remote sales process. And we're doing that even before it was cool to kind of be remote. And so we just really anchored in on that process, being true to that strategy, not deviating from it, trying to be great at what it is that we do. I've never sold door to door and couldn't even tell you how to do it. So stayed away from it. And I think that it's a great role for people to do, is door to door sales. I think it's awesome, but just not something I was familiar with. So we really anchored in on what we were great at and feel like we're great at what we do. And that's how we've helped build our brand to an online brand. That's helped to attract some really talented people. But to your point though, growth is hard. There are times where you have to take a step back and say, hey, I need to slow this down, because you don't want to jeopardize your customer experience, right? We have an obligation to really deliver a great experience to consumers that are transitioning from the centralized grid system and converting to the distributed energy network. And it's our responsibility to make sure that while they're making that transition, that they have a great experience. And so we've had to look at some of the ways that we grow, because we have the whole internet to market to. So we just don't. We really slowed it down and said, okay, let's be responsible and let's really be great at the markets that we're serving, and then start to grow into other markets as we start to master the markets that we're in. And we've learned a lot of lessons from solar companies of the past, including companies that I've been a part of. They were great, enjoyed it, learned a tremendous amount at the prior company that I was at, but also wanted to build something that was more sustainable for the long term. And that's what we've built today.
Awesome, thanks. And Will, I was hoping you could just talk to us about what a standard residential solar install crew looks like. What are the roles that make up a crew, and also how does that vary, across companies, across geography over time?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't know that there's necessarily a standard across the industry. There seem to break down into two groups. There are companies who have construction crews that are made up of roof crews that are working on the roof, doing racking and installing the roof wiring and doing putting modules up. And then there's the electrical crew that's doing the balance of system electrical part, hanging up inverters, doing interconnections, that part of the installation. Other crews, and this is the way that I tend to prefer to do it, is look at it more like electrical work as opposed to roof work and electrical work. I come from the Northeast, where most of our markets are heavily regulated when it comes to licensing requirements. So what I tend to like to do is prepare apprentice electricians with more experienced journeyman or master electricians and have them work as a team and switch between roof work and electrical work. The common jobs you see on that type of installation are, people doing roof work, mounting racking, putting modules up, and then the electrical components, running wires from the roof down to where the point of interconnection is going to be. So that's typically what we see in an installation of a residential system.
Awesome. And Will, if suppose somebody wants to join a solar company, but construction work is not right for them. They either don't want to go on a roof or would rather do something that doesn't have the physical demands of construction. What other roles are available, and what would you recommend to people?
Yeah, that's another great point, because construction is not the only job in the solar industry. There's lots of other opportunities. There's sales or development roles, working with customers. We've got all kinds of back office operations. There's a lot of paperwork involved in the solar industry. There's permitting, engineering and design. That's a great area to get into. There's management, marketing, purchasing and supply chain. When you get into the more commercial jobs, there's all kinds of development, working with landowners, securing land rights. And then we get into the post-installation asset management. There's asset management jobs of just making sure the system is up and running. And then the operations and maintenance personnel who maintain and repair systems. So yeah, lots of opportunities beyond just putting modules up on a roof.
Awesome. And I wanted to ask a question just to the whole group, which is for a young person who's coming out of high school or trade school or college and wants to build a career in solar, what advice do you have? Where would you start if you want to, not just get a job, but build a long-term career in solar?
I would say get a first job and do it really well, and then everything will flow from there. So focus in on whatever sounds most up your alley out of the things Will was laying out. And yeah, just prove yourself there, and it'll all go from there.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would say be passionate about the job that you take. There's a lot of great roles within the solar industry that have purpose and that do amazing things, but I think have passion. I would say do what you say you're going to do. That's also big, right? Like we take those little things for granted, and develop trust with your team and develop trust with the people around you, and that will lead you to success long term. I think that doesn't just go for solar, just in general, as somebody new trying to develop a career, is to develop trust and do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, and on top of that, I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. I think a lot of people, it's like, oh, this person is more senior than me, or they've been around, and you might get nervous, but don't be afraid to ask questions. I think, at least my experience, most people in this industry, they want to share their knowledge. They want to share their information. And solar changes so rapidly, like honestly, every 6 months, there's some new technology or some new thing. So we're often learning together. So just don't be afraid to ask, and make sure you attend events like this and you network, because that can always lead to additional opportunities as well.
And on the note of things changing, a lot of the folks who get promoted within our company or move into different roles, they're the ones who are out there looking for all the latest, greatest tech. They're the ones who are staying on top of any developments within the industry, and kind of proving themselves not just in their current jobs, but also showing that hey, they're understanding where the industry is going, where the tech is going, and keeping the rest of us on our toes with that too.
Yeah, to that point, has anyone seen new solar tech in the last year that's been really impactful for you, or just that you thought was really cool?
And there's so much coming out. I mean, batteries are the new, they're not new, but the big topic of conversation. And I think the thing that we're really seeing a lot of is the integration of different technologies between solar, energy storage, load management, EV charging, and bringing it all in together into a holistic system. I think that's where I see the industry going.
Awesome. Well, something I wanted to ask about was I gave my take at the top of the hour on the challenges facing the solar workforce, which was basically we need more people. Do people agree with that? And can you give a more nuanced take on where does the solar industry face workforce challenges, and are there any initiatives or efforts going on right now that you think are really great that are working to solve them?
Yeah, I would say, we feel it. Construction in general, if we're thinking out in the field and going in that direction of field work, that's really tight right now because every industry is booming on the construction side. So that makes it really challenging, especially in hot markets like California, where we operate in. There's a lot of opportunity. We're competing up against not just solar, we're competing up against other industries that are booming as well on the construction side. So I see that as a big challenge. Opportunity wise too, though, I think that there's great opportunity that's in the office as well, like very talented people that want to support customers to go from a contract signing to interconnection. There's so many great roles there, and there's not very many people out there that have the experience that you're looking for in that regard. So I think there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity, especially when you think about what you said earlier, 3 to 4% market penetration. We're going to double that in a very short period of time. We need some really talented people to join our industry to help us do that and to make that happen.
Yeah, I think to Will's point earlier about a lot of the kind of office or administrative roles, from the engineers to the asset managers. I think that one, getting people interested in the career. I've seen a lot of people who are like accountants, attorneys, a lot of different fields, and they just don't think about, this industry. They say, oh, I never thought that what I do could relate to the renewables or the solar energy industry. So I think with all of us doing a better job of communicating that, what I've seen from the construction standpoint, to follow up what JP said, yes, we're competing with building trades, but we're also going into new markets that have never seen solar before. So sometimes just having to train that workforce, and some contractors, they're stretched thin. So they're really looking for people to be almost ready day one, not only with the technical acumen and understanding of solar, but a lot of the things like teamwork, being able to communicate, a lot of those soft skills. They really want those emphasized as well, because, folks are working in crews of sometimes 3 to 6 people in multiple crews, and you have to be able to show up. And, there might be snowy days, there might be 110-degree weather days. Like, do you still show up to make sure that you're doing a quality project for the client? And that's what they're looking for. Not only that technical acumen, but that commitment to working with the team and making sure that great projects are turned over to the owners.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I actually wanted to pause to take a question from the audience. Mark asked if we could discuss the differences between residential and utility scale projects. How is the workforce different? How is building a team different?
Yeah, there's quite a few differences there. A lot of it has to do with licensing and permitting. The residential crews tend to run smaller groups that are more cohesive, where utility scale, they're jumping from project to project and often region from region. A lot of those crews are traveling, or they're just hiring temporary labor locally. That's what I see. And the demand side, there's demand for installation labor across the spectrum of installations. On the utility scale and larger scale projects, we see a large demand for operations and maintenance technicians, people who are going to go out and maintain systems, troubleshoot, fix problems, replace broken equipment. I'm hearing a large demand from that sector of the industry.
Yeah, and I can talk a bit about utility. Like I said, Reactivate, one of that JV or half of that JV is Invenergy, and we're building a lot of large utility scale projects. I was the VP of construction there, and you're going to have a lot of different crews, a lot of different experts. So you'll have your pile driving crew, so a lot of your mechanical crews. You have a lot of logistics, especially depending on the project side. As an example, Invenergy has, I think it's the largest project in North America, is 1.3 gigawatts down in Texas, and that's, I think, almost 1,100 folks that are down at that one project site, just to get it constructed. But you have people in logistics where you have material handlers, you have your mechanical installation crews, you have your module installers, you have people who are doing electrical terminations, inverter installation. So it's a wide array of skill sets that are needed and necessary at utility scale project sites.
I don't have experience on the utility side or that scale, but on the residential side, what we're seeing a lot of growth and need is on the battery side, the expertise on battery installation, integration with EV chargers, and then specifically California, main panel upgrades. It is massive right now with the age of the homes and the main panel upgrades that are required, and potential smart panels that are coming out. So for us on the residential side, that's the experience that we're really looking for, and then how it's a little bit different than maybe on the large utility scale is that our installers on the residential side, they build basically, like, think about every project as a snowflake, right? Everyone's unique and different and customized. Two homes right next to each other, they need something completely different. And so that type of experience is needed on the residential side, people that can easily pivot day after day after day with something that they're building that's unique and different.
Awesome, makes a lot of sense.
Conceptually, the way I think of them as being different is with the utility scale. I'm not sure how long Utopia's team is on site but you're basically going all in on one project for months at a time versus hopping around a different project every day. So in our case, like, each of our crews are going to be installing 150 125 to 175 projects in a year, and going around to all those different homes and traveling to different sites versus coming back to the same one every day for a month.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I wanted to ask next about diversity, equity, and inclusion in solar. How do you all feel that we're doing as an industry in terms of hiring and supporting and promoting a diverse workforce along the lines of race and gender? And how can we do better, and what are efforts that are underway?
Yeah, I think it's been a challenge historically, and the data released by organizations like SIA support that. I think we're making initiatives. There are initiatives in the industry to get more diversity in. At Solar Energy International, we're a training provider, so getting students into our classes from diverse populations is important to us. We're working with different workforce development organizations, tribal authorities, to get a diverse student body into our classes and into the industry.
Yeah, I think one of the latest stats I saw from like the U.S. Solar Diversity Study said, I think 26% of the solar workforce is women, even though 42% of the U.S. workforce, I think it's about 6% or so is African American, even though the U.S. workforce is 12%. And I believe that the Asian and Latin American demographics are pretty much on parity with where they are with the U.S. workforce. So there's definitely work for us to do. And I think we have to do a better job with outreach and making sure that training is accessible, that opportunities and careers are accessible. When we're working with workforce development partners, and honestly, even if we're working with various trade organizations, looking at the demographics within those organizations and how are they making outreach efforts as well, so that we can broaden our base as an industry. Because a lot of people have talked about the goals that we have as a country from an energy security standpoint, making sure that we're having a greater outreach with solar, with Reactivate, especially as we look at community solar projects. You want to make sure that you're bringing people into the tent that live in the communities that we're serving. And then when we think about low and moderate income communities, the energy burden that they face is substantial. And not everyone can afford to put solar on their rooftop. How are we making sure that LMI communities as well are benefiting from these energy savings? How are we making sure that things like EV charging infrastructure and things like that are accessible as well? So I think when we look with a broader lens, we look at the communities that we need to serve holistically for the entire country, then hopefully that will bring more people to the table and more opportunities for careers.
We've also just run up against issues that with childcare, and so one of our best installers was an awesome, I think like 24, 25-year-old woman with a 3-year-old son, and she couldn't find sufficient childcare in her hometown and didn't want to be on the road or traveling around. So we found her a job in the warehouse, moved her over, kind of kept her within the company, but that's been a real issue for the crews in particular, and attracting women onto the crews. Beyond that, we've also made a real effort at political diversity as well, which we want our teams to represent our place. And I think historically solar has been a really crunchy industry, and that is not West Virginia at all. And so we've made a really conscientious effort to try not to self-select people who are like us and like me. And I think we've been really successful at that. So as a result, I'm really proud of the office team. So we need to separate this out between the crews and the office staff. Out of the office staff, we are majority women. We've also we're definitely overrepresented on Hispanic, Asian, and African American groups within our company. So really proud of that. The biggest challenge has just been on the crew and labor side to diversify there.
Touching on what you said about political diversity, I think it's super interesting. I think I was surprised to see Republican Governor DeSantis strike down the anti-solar bill that was coming through the Florida legislature this week. How have you found solar messaging, which originally, as you said, came out of a fairly crunchy community, works with more conservative Republican communities?
So our very first project when I moved back home to start up the company was with a Presbyterian church in my hometown. And we did this amazing community solar project where we never asked for a dime from anybody. Instead, I asked people to let me install remote controls on their water heaters. And we registered a virtual power plant of water heaters in the community in order to take money away from the coal and gas guys and just give away solar to nonprofits. Anyway, as a result of that, we had 100 families in our tiny little town all supporting the project. And about 6 months after we went live with this, the West Virginia legislature flipped, and the very first bill out of the gate was to get rid of net metering, like literally Senate Bill 1, and this is early 2015. Well, we ran an emergency campaign and ended up flooding every single delegate and senator in the state with 600 emails in one night saying, "Don't take solar away from my church." And that worked. So the very next day, we ended up getting a unanimous vote in committee to keep net metering in place. And that was with a 2/3 Republican legislature. So there's that. There's kind of the religious diversity side, and kind of upending what folks expect. And then beyond that too, it's just, we're a coal state, and people's families have been in the mines for generations, or likely still are, or have family in coal and gas. And so you need to make sure that you're not attacking where people's families come from and the legacies there. And so we've been really mindful to kind of bring in people from the fossil industries.
Yeah, awesome.
SDI is actually based in a coal town in Colorado. So we have a lot of experience transitioning people from the fossil fuel industry into renewable energy. And when you look at the data across the country, renewable energy is popular across political parties. It may be for different reasons, but the popularity is still there.
Yeah. Well, we have time for one more question from me, and I wanted to direct it to all the panelists and maybe ask Utopia to start. And that is, what does great vocational solar training look like? There's, in a world with online learning, apprenticeships, in-person training, colleges, community colleges, what is the sort of experience for a person who goes through solar training that really works and allows them to succeed on the job look like?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that we have to tailor what that training looks like to the groups that we're trying to reach out to. So for someone who is coming, straight into the solar energy industry, if they want to work as an installer, either for residential or utility scale, it might be a short-term certificate program that's adequate and meets the needs of a lot of our contractors. If someone wants to have a different type of career in an administrative role or part of business development, maybe that might require training up to like an associate's or bachelor's degree level. So I think we have to right size it depending on the type of skill set that person would want to employ into the industry. But at least what we're seeing right now for installers is having something that's, a shorter term certification type program, so that the contractors really are having people come onto the job site ready to work. That's the thing I hear from contractors all the time, is like, they don't have time to spend months doing hands-on training at the job site. It's just really difficult right now. So they're looking for people who are ready to work day one. Again, not only having that technical acumen, but there's a huge emphasis on the soft skills, working with a team, committed to showing up to the job site on time, making sure that they're doing quality work. I've heard from contractors say they can have a person that has the best technical knowledge that there is, but if nobody wants to work with them, it doesn't help. So just making sure that we're finding that right balance between both.
Yeah, I would 100% agree on that. And I would add, on the residential side, if we're speaking, construction side, is getting certifications from the manufacturers that are really big in the residential side. So whether that be Enphase, SolarEdge, Generac, really being certified on battery too, so that way that they're ready on day one, they have the certifications to be able to do those things from those manufacturers. I think that is really big for us as well. So that's on the construction side. On the non-construction side, office side, I think really certifying on the technologies that exist that are big in the market, whether it be CRM, Salesforce, or other products that many solar companies use, getting certified on those processes and those systems. And then, maybe certifications around design and engineering, what makes a great project manager, what makes a great customer service representative, and being able to really identify what those skills are and certifying on those skills, and maybe having a unified type of certification program that companies like us could use to say, wow, this person's coming in, they're ready. The onboarding isn't going to take me 2 weeks, it's going to take me 3 days, and the person can make an impact on day 4 versus day 14.
With regard to the manufacturer trainings, we're huge fans of the Enphase training suites that they put out there. So we actually require everybody who is starting with our company within the first month to go through the Enphase storage, as well as PV courses, and provide those certifications by day 30 of their employment with us. So yeah, definitely a big fan of that. On the other thing I would add on the office and project development sales side, you need to know the technology, but you also need to understand electricity markets and different utilities, utility rate structures. You need to be able to understand financing. So like a lot of the folks we're pulling in on that side of things, we're pulling in former lobbyists, former teachers, former actually car salespeople too. There's actually a lot of overlap with that, kind of talking about technology and finance. But the biggest thing I wish we had more of coming in is just understanding of electricity markets and how these programs work, because that's the single thing that takes the most onboarding from our perspective.
And I'll just close the discussion out by saying that the form that the training takes also depends a lot on the learner. Some people learn fine in an online environment, some learn better in a classroom environment. So it really depends on their learning style. What we find at SEI with our classes, because we do online classes, we have in-person classroom classes and in-person hands-on classes. What we find works really well is online classes for the theory part, and then transitioning to the hands-on classes. I hear time and time again from students when they show up to the lab yard that having that hands-on component really connected the dots with the technical information that they received. One thing that we've identified is that traveling to a somewhat remote location in Colorado is not accessible to all people. So we're working with other organizations like Reactivate and community colleges and universities around the country to make that hands-on component more accessible and get it into places where it's more convenient for people to travel to. But that component can be really a good way to get that hands-on skill to get into the industry.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We have 15 minutes left and we're going to move to audience questions. There's a number in the chat, which we'll read from, but I wanted to start just by asking anyone who's got a question, who's ready to use Zoom's raise your hand feature. It is under the reactions menu at the bottom of Zoom. So if anyone is feeling up for asking their question live, we'd love to start with you. And Gautam and I will also be combing the chat for questions that people ask, which we're happy to read out. Awesome. Mike, do you mind unmuting and turning on your video, asking your question?
For sure. Thanks, Sam. And hi, everyone. So you mentioned, I'll keep this quick. You mentioned working with community-based organizations that run some workforce development programs. And I'm wondering, when you do make those decisions, what are like really attractive selling points for deciding to partner with a community-based org, a nonprofit that's running workforce development programs in these industries?
I mean, I think for us at SEI, when we're partnering with workforce development organizations, it's usually to provide trainings. We're a training provider. So I think what works best is, having a funding source to supplement the cost of the training is always a good thing. But really having a connection between the students, the training, and employment is really, really important. So having a pathway to get those students through the training and into jobs is really pretty critical from what we see.
Thank you.
Mohammed, would you please unmute, put on your video and ask your question?
Yeah, hello everyone. So my name is Mohammed Salar Saddiq. So I'm an electrical engineer by profession. So I did my electrical engineering from Pakistan, but I am fully authorized to work here in USA. So I specialize in power systems, and I do have a lot, like I'll not say I have a lot of knowledge, but I do feel that I have my basics covered, because during my undergrad degree, we used to design solar projects as well during my degree. But over here, like I'm struggling to find an entry-level job in solar design engineering because most of the companies require like experience. So my question is that I can't get experience until I step into the industry, right? So what is like the best pathway for me? Because I already have a degree. I think I can, like, if I break into the industry, I can make a mark pretty quickly as well. So I am really struggling to find an entry-level job. There are plenty of jobs for the salesperson and everything. I don't want to do that, to be very honest. Like I'm more inclined towards the design engineering position. So if I get some training opportunities over here in Dallas, I live in Dallas right now. So it would be good for me. So if you could just guide me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, I would say that you maybe open up the scope outside of, I think you said Dallas. There are a lot of remote opportunities, especially in that role. The new world has opened it up tremendously. That we don't even have an office. We have 2 satellite offices that are in California, but they're specific for construction. But all of our centralized operations roles are all remote. And that's helped us to really hire very talented people throughout the country. We have people working in markets that we don't even operate in, that are highly specialized in those roles. So I would say open up the search probably beyond Dallas, and you'd be surprised you'll find some great opportunities out there, entry-level opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm kind of honestly kind of shocked that you're having that much challenge trying to find something. You know, I plug solar design into LinkedIn with remote jobs, and there's 70 positions that come up. There's tons of demand for those positions, and you know, I'm hearing from people that are willing to hire pretty much anyone, and having that electrical engineering background is a huge benefit. So
Yep,
look outside your market.
Yep, no, my point is that I was just saying that I live in Dallas, but I've been searching remotely as well. I've given a few interviews as well. So, but the point is that most of the employers just like they prefer someone experienced, and that is very right. So my utmost priority is to break into the industry first, and I can only get experience once I get in. So that's what it is.
One other wrinkle I would add in your case, just hearing what I've heard so far, most residential installation companies don't use in-house electrical engineers for their design work. It would honestly be overkill. So it would be fairly easy for someone to see a resume come through and see the electrical engineering on there from the resi side and just think that, oh, he's overqualified for what we're doing here. So you may find a little more success in the commercial, in the CNI space.
Okay.
With that on it. That's my 20-second background check on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Mom, we have to move on the word.
Thank you.
Super happy to work with you one-on-one through Greenwork. Ulysses.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to first thank everyone for giving us your opinions, your perspective, and your and as much as your practice as you've been going. I'm part of LACI, Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubators, and I'm currently going through the training process. And one of the things that that provoked my question was that you said we need to keep in contact with the employment process. Now, my question would be, since many of the, yes, California is becoming more popular in solar panels, but I know that your companies are not in the state. And then based on Mohammed's question, relocation and remote work, how would someone who's new into this field be welcome in that scenario? Like, like leaving Los Angeles and going to Colorado or Virginia? What can I expect, or can I expect anything? Thank you.
That's an interesting question. I would think being based in LA, there'd be lots of opportunities for organizations locally there. And Greenwork is heavily focused in California, so I'll give them a little plug there. So I'd connect with them. I'm sure Sam can help you out in that respect. As far as traveling to other states and relocating, employers are looking for people, and if you're willing to do the job and you're willing to show up and have those soft skills and maybe a little training, they're willing to hire you to relocate. The only concern I would have, and this is going to vary by state, is the licensing requirements of the state. Some states are much more lax with their licensing requirements than others, so that would be something that I'd want to ask potential employers about.
Great, thanks, Will. I wanted to move next to Jason Peterson.
Hi there. Sorry, I was trying to get back to the right window. My question is, how do I find somebody locally who's passionate that'll work their butts off to get this job going? I've got a startup company, been doing it for 4 years, and I'm kind of burnt out doing everything. So I'd love to train somebody to do it right. Can you help me out?
Yeah, we SEI can help you with the training, the finding people, man. If you can figure that out, you're going to be a successful person. I think recruiting is a challenge for every organization, including SEI internally.
Okay.
It's a hard job market. I partner with local community colleges, trade schools, high schools, business schools, if that's what you're going for.
Okay.
That'd be a good suggestion there. Maybe Dan or JP might have a better idea.
And Sam may have a plug for Greenwork. So
Yeah.
I was gonna say
let others go first.
Yeah. I would say, it's hard. It's really hard. What I've seen that's helped me is to really look at what it is that I want to hire and really define the role, very clearly define the role that you want to hire. And then you post that way the person that you're hiring knows exactly what it is they're applying for. And then when they get into the job, you have a higher likelihood of them being successful in the role. And then I would also say a very strategic plan around what your organization needs to look like and who those roles are. Don't worry about the names, even though you might already have people. Don't worry about names, just worry about the model, the operating model. Define out the model and define the roles, specifically what they do, and then post those very specific roles, and you'll be more successful, probably finding the people that you need long-term. And I'm also giving myself that guidance to do more of that.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Just want a cloning machine and start there.
Honestly, too, it just takes time. Like, you're gonna have to interview 50 people to find the one, or
Oh yeah.
and then
get started.
You might think you have the one, and then they start, and then the first week or two, it kind of becomes apparent that this actually, and that's where JP's point about being really clear helps. That's going to help reduce the churn on the post hire.
Okay.
But
okay.
It takes legwork.
All right. Thanks for the insight.
And I'll just say briefly, Greenwork is an online community for solar professionals and trade schools. And so we'd love to talk and see if we can help. We're mostly in California at the moment. It looks like you're around Kansas City, so we may not be able to immediately solve your problem.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was looking for, there was a company a while back that had NABCEP installers that could be ordered per project, so to speak. But it had been a couple of years since I looked them up, and it looked like they had changed to a different business model. So I thought that was a pretty clever idea a couple of years ago.
Well,
But thank you. Yeah.
Jason, thank you. We got time for one more question. We're going to turn to Mark.
I appreciate that. I know we don't have much time. A bit of a downer question, but a hard question. I wonder, and folks can maybe chime in. I wonder if our industry, I separated into resi and then residential and utility scale. If we offer career opportunities in terms of salary, in terms of somebody getting a job and wanting to stay in solar for years. Some of the people on the call, of course, have been doing it for 10, 20 years. But do we have a problem with, you mentioned about turnover, it's been discussed in a few questions here already, hiring on people and they find that either for resi work, whatever, it's hard, it's in the sun, it's harder than I thought, I'm not getting paid and I don't see a real career advancement for me. It seems like we have a real pyramid where there's few good jobs, sales, designing and so on, but lots and lots of jobs needed for installation, but that's relatively low pay. Also on the utility scale side, it seems the model there, so much of our solar is going into utility scale and not residential, but that's usually done on a project by project basis. Once the project is done over a few months, then it's done. And the EPC moves on to another location, maybe far away. Those people that worked on that job, are they going to be able to get another job in solar? I just think that we have some inherent problems that we have to work out.
I swear that wasn't a plant, but one of the reasons we went and unionized our crews and joined up with the IDW was for the clarity of pay bumps. So the way it works in our case and in any unionized shop case, you've got your different you've got your different ranks and levels, and in the contract we're on, there's 7 different levels. Every 1,000 hours of in-field experience leads to a pay bump. And so for us doing this, it kind of got away from the absolutely draining model of people coming to me saying, I'm a better electrician than that person next to me. You need to give me a pay raise to be more than them, which just drives everyone crazy. So by making it really clear and transparent, it gives people that thing to look forward to. And they know, like, hey, I'm out here for 1,000 hours, I'll get that pay bump. And then we actually instituted another one on top of that, where even once they get maxed out on their electrical level, they'll get pay bumps automatically for years of service with the company. And so that way they're not just capped out, but we're actually valuing 10 years of experience in the field.
And I would say to Mark, I would disagree a little bit how you framed that. And Mark and I used to work together. Mark's a good guy, so we know each other. I don't know that we necessarily have a pay problem, especially even in the operations side. I think it's more a messaging problem that they're good paying jobs. I mean, it's going to vary depending on the region you're at and what the market's like. But we look at in the Northeast, entry level installers are starting in the low $20 an hour range. And when they get up into electricians, I mean, you're talking $30, $40+ an hour. That's a career. I mean, that's a career level there. And I think the other thing that some companies struggle with, and I think this is a fairly broad problem, is letting employees know what's the growth opportunities. Like where can I go from here, and making sure to communicate that well to your team. And that goes a lot towards employee retention. So yeah, I think some installers, especially in certain geographic regions, have relatively low paying jobs, but there's a lot of opportunity for advancement there, at least in the experience that I've seen.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that. I think as the individuals, especially if they're working at the construction job sites, is diversifying their skill set. So a lot of our projects are in the Midwest or in the Northeast. We deal with snow. We're not installing a lot of solar in the wintertime. So what else are they doing so that they understand other trades and using those as transferable skills until we have another open construction season? I think it's just like any other building trade. If you're outside, you have a certain window in certain parts of the country, and you have to make sure you have transferable skills during that off season.
And Utopia, I don't know where you guys are working. I was doing installs in Vermont on roof all through the winter, but you get a hard those teams up.
I'd say that's also why we really intentionally view this as not just a solar installer slinging panels on a roof. It's trying to diversify those skill sets into other electrical tasks. Like ultimately, that is the career as electrician, not solar installer.
I lost track of time, but we are 2 minutes over. I want to say a huge thank you to all 4 of our panelists who are doing just a ton in their daily lives to build the solar industry, to create good jobs, and appreciate you taking an hour to be with us. And thanks everybody else for being here, being engaged, asking great questions. Gautam has put help@joingreenwork.com in the email. Hit us up anytime. We'd like to meet you, or reach out to us through Greenwork. And thank you all for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.